Welcome to Reddit Recap. Don't forget to subscribe. Reddit asks, what was your I don't get paid enough for this moment at work? When I worked at McDonald's, I found out we didn't get paid for closing. We got paid until the store closed. So if it took us an extra hour or two to close, that wasn't paid. I wish I knew what I know now, because that is an open and shut case. But at the time, I was young and dumb. My first paycheck, I noticed I had a ton of missing hours. So when I asked my boss about it, she told me we only get paid until the store closed. So that night, I walked out when the store closed. They tried to guilt me into staying, because the other team members need me. Fuck that. I don't work for free. Sorry. Especially when I'm already making minimum wage. No thanks. Not gonna happen. I worked for the university's horse barn as a teenager. They had some pretty strict rules that I was not used to at other places. Like the horses were only allowed outside for 2 hours. No matter what. Could be the most beautiful day and we would have to stop everything we were doing to bring them into their stalls. They were only ever allowed 2 squirts of fly spray, which didn't cover their butts. Required to have their halters on 24/7. Even when in the stalls at night. Our boss had clearly zero experience with animals, or if he did, he just didn't care. One day while one of the horses was having his feet trimmed, my boss went to pull out a weed whacker from the bottom of the shelf directly next to where the horse was standing. A lot like Jenga, the entire closet of machinery fell onto the horse, causing him to kick the farrier and run. Ever since that incident, the horse was a mess. So instead of hiring a trainer to fix the problem, they just locked him in the stall. All day 24/7. I quit shortly after that. I still wonder how that horse is doing. Posted before. This was back in the late 90s. I was working at Walmart as my first job as a teenager. I was floated to the garden department one day and there was a guy looking at lawn fertilizer. I walked over and asked if he needs help. He said not now. Just looking at the different kinds you have. Pretty standard reply from the guy. So I said okay. Let me know. I walk away. And then swing back about 5 minutes later. Same guy has proceeded to rip open about 10 different kinds of the fertilizer all over the ground and is rolling around in the stuff. He is also taste sampling the stuff. I called my manager because I did not want to deal with it. Security escorted the guy out the store and called an ambulance in case the ingestion of the fertilizer hurt him. My boss insisted that everybody be at their desks at 8:30 sharp. She made me take roll on an attendance sheet and hand it in to her every day. She also made me do it at lunchtime, when everybody left and came back, and when they left at night. Took roll for a bunch of adults 3 times a day. I don't work there anymore. I walked into the bathroom, and someone had smeared poop on literally every single surface. Wall. Everything except one small part of the ceiling they couldn't reach. Picasso almost made me quit. But luckily my boss told me to lock it, not let anyone else use it. And he got someone to come with a pressure washer. A few years into my flying career, so definitely not earning what people think pilots earn. I was asked to take a bunch of handicapped children and their carers for a 10-minute flight in a small twin-prop aircraft. All seemed to be going well until after landing, when I smelt the unmistakable stench of vomit. I looked around and all the passengers were looking horrified, as the inside of the plane had been covered in what I was told used to be strawberry milkshake. I then had to vacuum and wash down the carpet in the plane. The vacuum died after picking up a large amount of this lumpy white substance and it started to drip back down the nozzle. It was a warm day and that didn't make the smell any better. I mentioned the handicapped thing not because I'm an awful person, but because his learning disability meant he didn't think to inform his carer of his nausea. So there was no attempt to reach for the sick bag. Direct support staff for people with minor disabilities. 13 an hour. Had a client go off the rails because he refused to take schizophrenia pills. Was working night shift and he gets up in the middle of the night and starts yelling random things, running around the house naked, peeing on everything, asking for me to put a cowboy hat on him. He is now in a nursing home, bless his soul. Edit. Yes, he got his cowboy hat LMAO. when my boss screamed at me for something they got wrong. This was a couple hours after 2 co-workers almost came to blows because one of them left their phone overnight and the other, the first person to arrive in the shop, used it to send a prank text to another co-worker but didn't want to admit it. Was making $2 above minimum wage for a furniture rental store. I was supposed to be a manager in training but they screwed me and made me a jack of all trades. One day they asked me to help out on repo runs and get back furniture from people that didn't pay. First red flag was going into an area and taking away a fridge from a family and watching them take all their food out for their kids and getting friends to keep it cold. The nail in the coffin though was going to someone's house at 10 PM at night. Waking up the family. Going into the bedroom of a sleeping child to wake him up so we can't take away his bed as his parents didn't pay for it. As someone with young children at the time, I was disgusted in what I was doing. I was putting in 18-hour days doing these repossessions. I asked my district manager what I would be getting as compensation as I've had to do some very terrible things. She promised I would be well compensated for saving the company a ton of money and product. I got a $15 gift card to buy alcohol. I don't drink. I work in security. And a bit under a year ago, I worked at some kind of public TV event. My job was to keep people without passes out of a specific area which was intended for those working behind the scenes to kick back and relax and get their lunches and all that. Anyway, only ones I was allowed entrance were people with passes and other security folks. But then word from above came that the exception was to be made for some kind of supposedly famous child music group. I had no clue what they looked like. So 4 kids and their parents walk up and I stop them. Don't you know WHO, these are quickly followed. Eventually it got cleared up. And every time after they kept bringing in more friends and family members and the same song and dance continued. I don't think you understand what a contract means. Besides, this is an opportunity for you. When the new manager tried to move me to night shifts weekend from my day shifts working days despite my contract being very specific about when I worked. Hey, you were right. This is a big opportunity for me, was how I opened when I told her I was quitting. The look of shock and 15 minutes of silence on her part were hilarious and the best feeling interval of my entire life when she realized I had thrown her own stupid words back at her. Used to work as a dental nurse. First patient of the friggin' day. Bloke said he felt sick after having a local anesthetic. He looked it. I grabbed the bin and told him if he needed to vomit, take the bin. He held it in his lap and turned, vomiting down the side of the chair and all over my pants and shoes. Of course I had to clean it up and of course they wouldn't let me go home to change. The time I went to sleep under my desk at work at 5 AM because I needed to be back at my desk for an 8 AM call. I had promised myself a long time ago that I would never sleep under my desk. I would go home. Or just work straight through. But I wouldn't do that. I only lived a 12-minute walk home. But that night I realized that getting those extra 24 minutes of sleep were worth not going home. I was so sad about it. I am a corporate lawyer. We had been working, literally, around the clock for days on a deal that was going sideways. This was a Wednesday, a Thursday morning. But I had been there until 3 AM Sunday night, 5 AM Monday night, 6 AM Tuesday night, and had been back in the office by 9 AM every day. That's when I knew I needed to quit, but I'm still here a year and change later. Oops. When a clarinet came across my bench that someone had jizzed in. When I found a dead mouse in a Bari sax. When people think duct tape or superglue is an acceptable substitute for soldering parts together. When people use superglue on their instruments. Period. Was working the registers at a grocery store. About an hour before closing. A customer comes to my lane with 2 48CT egg cartons. Stumbles a bit putting them onto the belt. And before I can react the entire thing was on the ground. Best part? Apparently the janitor had left already. So I got to spend the next hour cleaning up 96 broken eggs with nothing but paper towels. I had an emergency. Last minute 20,000 word translation that needed to be done in under 24 hours. The usual output for a translator is 2000 words per day, including proofreading and editing. I don't know how, but I managed to bash it out. Not my best quality translation ever, but I got it done. Edit. I'd like to point out that I did get many thanks from my actual boss. I also just remembered I did get a thank you email. Working at Target on Black Friday in the back room without anyone else to help me pull the product and getting told I am not keeping up. Weird how I got sick 2 hours into my volunteered 12-8 shift. An old man rushed inside our store, literally running to the bathroom, but still managed to shit himself and all over the floor before he could make it. Right in the most open, spacious part of the store. Edit. Row. This is my most popular response ever. I don't know if I'm excited or disappointed. To add further detail, this was at a combination Circlec subway store. I worked the subway side, so it was one of the Circlec employees that actually cleaned it. And what I meant about it being out in the open was that we're the busiest store in our district. So even with a pile of shit is on the ground, we've got people still trying to come in and out, and it's very visible. And it took a little while for my friend on the Circlec side to actually get the cleaning supplies together. So a good chunk of people came in, saw the shit, shrugged it off and still got their pack of cigarettes. Or saw the shit, did a double take and just went right back out the door. And we're in a big retirement area, so this kind of thing actually happens often. Though most times, it's mainly something that happens in the bathroom itself. I worked at an Eddie Bar in the mall one summer in high school, just working the floor, helping customers, keeping the displays stocked and tidy, normal shit. A guy comes in and starts rifling through the cargo shorts, getting visibly flustered the longer he goes on. I, being the attentive worker that I was, ask him if I can help him with anything. This was 18 years ago, and I remember this almost verbatim. I'm going to use the language that he used for full shock effect. Yeah. Don't you guys carry any fucking normal shorts? Not these ones with all these damn pockets. You know why they're used for, right? It's for all the niggers in the city to keep their drugs in. They keep their drugs in this pocket, points to the lower pocket. And they have their hand in this pocket, points up the regular pocket, and they're jerking off. Yeah. Those niggas stand on the street corner with their drugs and they're jerking off. 17-year-old me was dumbfounded. UHH. The regular khaki shorts are back this way. Edit. For all of you calling them word but on me or chastising me for saying it, learn about context, you nitwits. My mother was moving interstate with my father and it was the last time I'd see either of my parents for months. I was 18 and just graduated school. I explained this to my boss but he just said I would have to see her another time because he needed a fence put up over the weekend. I told him I was leaving either way and he could put his own fence up. I quit soon after that. He also accused me of lying and berated me multiple times for random things that I either didn't do and refusing to pay me for weeks at a time. Had a metal bolt thrown at me while teaching 13-year-olds. It missed but it could really have hurt me. I'm not the best teacher. Not by a long mile. But I don't deserve that kind of fuckery. One of my other co-workers decided to rotate tires on a Chevy Dually pickup over the weekend. Buddy forgot to tighten the lug nuts. And never me said anything. I'm on the Long Island Expressway, doing about 65. I slow down, take an exit, and I feel the back end fall down. I look in my rear view mirror and see two of my wheels going off in a direction that I am not going. And sparks. A lot of sparks. I could have fucking killed someone due to someone else's incompetence. I was lucky I didn't roll the truck either, because there was a refrigerated ice cream box on the back that gave it a center of gravity about 6 feet in the air. I put in my 2 weeks after that. When I walked into the room of a confused patient on blood thinners who had ripped out his IV and catheter, and had shit and blood on every surface of his room. It looked like a murder had been committed. I've been through a lot as a nurse, but that was like going into a war zone. Having to listen to a child scream his head off because the father insisted on injection instead of the calming drug we usually use for kids that small. Arsehole father. That kid is going to be scared of the dentist for a long time. If not for life. I manage a fast food restaurant, and for me it's always things that have to do with the bathroom. From having to clean up porn magazines, WC men on the floor or walls, to people either purposely shying on the floor, even use hypodermic needles. I make $13 an hour on an ambulance every day, and I don't get paid enough for this moment. I was working late, like 2 AM in the office. My manager said let's go to the convenience store to buy some snacks and smokes. She sits in the back and we drive there. After we get our shit, she says can we swing by this street intersection real quick. When we get to that intersection, I guess she sees a car that belongs to someone she knows parked in front of her boyfriend's house. She starts to wail, cry and kick around in the back seat, while my bewildered ass just holds the steering wheel with a stupid look on my face. After 20 minutes of that shit, we drive back to the office. I drop her off and I go home. WTF. Worked at a fast food place about 13 years ago. This lady in the drive-thru claimed she was missing a sandwich. Our policy was to ask for the bags back to verify. I asked to see the bags, 3 or 4. Decent sized order. And instead of handing them back like a civilized human being, she instantly started raging and throwing the food into the window while cutting me out. Guess what one of the items that she threw at me was? Yeah. Said missing sandwich. Got change thrown in my face at work because a man was upset we didn't have meatballs. Now if I'm working, he'll come in, see me, and walk out. Edit. I work at Subway, lol. Edit 2. I'm sorry if I don't reply to you. I keep getting a lot of comments and have to work with what I got, lol. I work in childcare. There was one time we had one kid who had a diaper blowout and one kid who puked everywhere. There's only 2 teachers, so one has to handle the blowout and one the vomit, while also keeping the rest of the kids away from it all. That's all for this video. You made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing so you know when the next videos are released. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.